Hi everyone, my name is Zake, and I have I don't know, not settled on a specific uh, page title, tag, so to say, to go by. I've had many over several years, and yeah, so still looking for my shtick. But I'm recording this video because I just watched a very emotional and genuinely moving, very profound, very sincere, and honestly, frankly, very honest and truthful reflection by the YouTuber and content creator, makeup guru, Bailey Sarian. She basically poured her heart out in what I think was probably a video stemming from a lot of it's hard to break it down. I mean, there was so much emotion in her voice, but it wasn't emotional, so to say. Not the modern way we view people when they are passionate about something, and then we say that they're emotional. They're just being, they're having a moment. But really, the truth is that having a moment just means someone has most likely had enough of something or is really moved by something and just wants to pour their heart out and put it out on their sleeve. And that's exactly what she did. So forgive the pigsty that is my room. I've got my Domino's box, etc. No one's sponsoring me, so it's all there because it's all there. I figured I'd do this video because the chances are if I don't do it, I'm probably not going to do it at all, because my ADHD brain just unfortunately can switch on for a second, and then once it's switched off to an idea, I just shut it out and I don't go back to it. But long story short, her content was very specific about the current chaos and injustice that we are facing as a society in the world. And I really felt the sincerity in her tone the whole video. The fact that she cried so much because there are people out there, believe it or not, who are so sincerely upset by the current state of politics, of our economic stability, government policies and procedures all over the world. I mean, we've literally got World War III in action. We just haven't called it World War III. I mean, we can see the US is fooding with virtually every single country in the world other than the US. And actually, scratch that, even the fucking US is feuding with the US. But you get what I mean. There's obviously a very concerning pattern of extreme right-wing, extreme radical, non-fact specific logic and ideology that is rampant in our society at the moment, globally, universally. Like, it isn't limited to just the US alone. And unfortunately, this is just what seems to happen. It's like a chamber of secrets. We repeat the same catastrophes again and again, because as society heals from one severe wound to the other, there is a gap in between, in which we start off by moving on from a major disastrous, horrible event, whether it's world war, whether it's another tragedy, or mass shooting, something like, even mass shootings now don't seem to have the same effect on people anymore. I think we're desensitized to the fact that every time we hear there's a mass shooting in America, it's just like, has it been 2 seconds yet? Has someone else been stabbed in Australia or the UK? Has it been 2 seconds yet? Like, it's just all over the news. And I think that a lot of this was very existent even 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's just that media is now a lot more accessible to the global populace, and it is just, it is permanently embedded through the World Wide Web. We can access so much content now at the click of a finger, click of a mouse. I'm on live, okay? Cut me some slack. I had no practice on this. Again, I'm telling you, I'm doing it, out of love for someone that I've been, following religiously for many years, because I love her content. And I could see that, again, Bailey has so much love and care for what's happening in the world, and I think there's just this profound difference between her and so many other, celebrities, no matter what rankings they are in the alphabet. How we say A ranking, B ranking, D list celebrity, blah blah blah. I think that as a content creator, as an influencer, she could very well have chosen to remain part of the neutral zone. Influencers where they just try and avoid political communications altogether, or when they are political, it's usually very sentimental, wishy-washy stuff that no one can really get overly upset about. I mean, people will always get upset about everything, but we have politically right or politically correct, since right is a whole entire fucking problematic movement, but politically correct celebrities and influencers out there who just know how to occasionally throw a little bone of optimism, of support out there for a community. And then we've got people who genuinely care about what's happening in the world and are willing to risk their entire careers, the future of their careers, revenue, contracts with sponsors, etc., because they are human beings like us, just a lot more wealthier or a lot more presence in media, and they've decided that is not more important than me being a good person. And I think Bailey just falls into that category of being a very caring person. So yeah, I'm here to simply state that she's, if you go watch her video, she said, "What are we going to do?" It's the title. I think it's 100% fair. It's a question that we're all asking right now. We have no idea what we're going to do. We have no idea whatsoever. But the truth is that doesn't mean the answer isn't very clear to everyone. We know that in the past, when these extreme movements have started taking over the world, and going back to my point where I said we have these brackets of time when a major catastrophe, a major event occurs in the world that's so horrible, so traumatizing that it just shakes all of us, like a slap back into reality. It shakes us all back into a sense of stability, of common sense, and we begin to, cool off and learn to get along with one another. However, during that interim between one event and another, we function like, what's the word? We begin the process very smoothly. We make such progressive, positive changes. We learn to, come together. And we still have all the, the fucking extremists out in the world, the problematic people causing, chaos through religious ideology, through, their sort of heightened and extremely exaggerated versions of immigration and economic stability, fiscal liability on things like, welfare, for example, and it could be a whole variety of different things on supporting native indigenous communities that were, uprooted because of invaders from many, many years ago, and yet the current communities now are still facing so much of the consequences from that suffering. And as a society, we decided that we do want to do something about a lot of the harm and damage that's been done in the past. But we're always going to have people that want to sort of corrupt that sentiment, that kindness with poisonous logic that ultimately does get through to a lot of people, because it does, when you believe something is the case, even if it's a very horrible thing. For example, the logic that a lot of people have around the Jewish community because of Israel. Like, you just, if you can actually believe the cruel ideology of what someone is saying, that can be a very powerful thing, and lead to problems like the Holocaust, like what's happening in Ukraine, like what's happening in America, and how Donald Trump got elected twice, not once, which was already an extreme shock to all of us. Like, it's true, like the right is not wrong. It was a huge shock to everyone. No one was expecting it, no one. But for him to get elected a second time, it's not that people weren't expecting it, it's that people genuinely thought you would not be stupid enough to put someone into like the strongest power there is on the planet, which is, US leadership, when you know that person is not going to act on behalf of the people, does not care about your well-being as a populace, as a working class citizen, as someone who might have a disability, as someone who might want genuine, spiritual freedom and union. Like, even as a religious person, I'm shocked to see that. Like, I mean, I'm not religious myself, but I mean, to see religious people so fucking fanatically obsessed with Donald Trump and the Republican Party and right-wing media in general, I would just think to myself, if I were religious, and I can consider myself spiritual, I love the concept of, being good and trying to leave a positive footprint, in the world, in the universe before you leave it. I would say that you would probably not want people like that in power, because their goal is to ultimately divide our communities, and not just the religious communities from secular belief systems, but actually dividing everyone. Like, since the Republican and right-wing movement has really started to flare up again in the last decade and a half. Obviously it's always had a movement, but they've really gone all out, especially with the rise of Donald Trump. Fuck, he's been like the Antichrist for Republicans. It's just like fucking motivated the shit out of them, brought out the absolute worst in them, because I genuinely believe most conservative people were not 80% as awful as they are now before Donald Trump. I think he just somehow got this seed inside everyone who was getting fed up with progressive movements, because they felt like the world was changing into something that they did not recognize anymore, that they weren't comfortable being in. And he just exploded into like this weed bush of corruption and tragedy. And he is just but one. He's just but one of such a huge and intricate web of corrupt individuals in the world who are trying to seize power for that collective, that very small collective, mind you, when you compare the fact that we've got nearly 9 billion people on the planet, and there's probably only about a few thousand of these like multi-mega millionaire / billionaire, almost a single trillionaire in existence. They're like, literally, if you compared them to the rest of the world, we're talking about not even a tile in a house. We're not even talking a tile in a house. We're talking, there's such a small percentage of our society. We're talking that they're like, the screen doors. They're like a fucking little. They're like one of those little holes in your screen doors. That's how small this percentage is, and yet they wield the biggest influence over the entire infrastructure of human civilization. Okay, they seem to have more power than would be, feasibly, logically, effectively, even effectively relevant. Like, it's just not necessary to give so much power to such a small fraction of human beings, because fuck, human beings are very flawed. We are very naive. Even the most intelligent ones of us are still very ignorant when it comes to specific topics. You can be the smartest person in the world in the concept of physics and the study of fucking quantum physics, but you could also be incredibly fucking uneducated when it comes to showing empathy, understanding how other people are feeling, understanding how to make a fucking tuna sandwich. Like, there is always going to be something that human beings are not so educated on, are not so experienced on. And so when you give the power of an entire fucking race into such a small fraction of human beings' hands, you are basically condemning the entire planet to death, like to a quick death compared to what we would originally have survived. And the reason being is that wealthy people don't necessarily care about whether we have a big population or a small population or whatnot, because they don't care about you, babe. I was going to say bud, babe, I don't know. They don't care about me. They don't care about you. I know you think they do. They don't. I don't know what media outlet was, fucking charismatic and intelligent enough to be able to get so many of us to think that celebrities and multi-millionaire, billionaires / almost trillionaire would give a shit about us working class people who are nothing but fucking labor dogs to them. All we do is make profits for them, make money for them by purchasing their goods, their services, their donating to them, because we have been convinced that somehow they're a bigger savior, they're somehow more efficient in leading and protecting us all than those of us who are actually living in the real world. You know what I mean? Like, we're actually out here. We're the ones going into a fucking takeaway store and ordering a meal from someone, providing that customer service, paying those taxes, learning what it means to fucking save on your tax dollars. We're the ones who are going into a public hospital, a private hospital even, and understanding the sacrifices that it takes to be able to have life-saving surgeries, the wait times, the savings. As in Australia, we have something called super. I think it's like for American Social Security. I'm not entirely sure how American system works, with our retirement funds, with their retirement funds. But for us, we have something called superannuation, where every single week a portion of your wages is dedicated to your superannuation, which is a lifelong savings account, ultimately, that you can only access on the very, very tight circumstances, very specific ones. Otherwise, when you're of retirement age, which it's fucked up anyhow, because retirement age in Australia, I think for the newer generation, is like nearly 70 or something like that. And you're just like sitting there thinking, why the fuck would I want to access hundreds of thousands of dollars when I'm 70 years old and probably getting ready to die? Like, the concept of retirement funds in Australia is pretty... Anyhow, that's a whole other discussion. But look, my point that I'm trying to raise is that at the end of the day, Bailey has made a very, very valid comment and asked a very, very significant and important question. We need to figure out what we are doing as a society to help save us from these predatory millionaires/billionaires. I know you think they're not as bad as they seem, and I know that, look, on social media they just sound like kooky people most of the time. Like, especially Elon Musk, he's almost laughable, isn't he? Not almost, he is laughable. Everyone laughs at him. Everyone finds him to be just so pathetic and so ridiculously silly. And when I say everyone because most of the world does. A very small percentage of the world actually thinks Elon Musk holds any social, compassionate, empathetic, progressive or humanitarian value in his ideology. Very, very small faction. And we know this, okay? We know this. Majority of us know this. But here's the issue. We don't know how to put that forward into action. So what do you do against the richest man in the world, or the richest men in the world, and the richest women in the world? Like, what do you do to actually combat the power that they hold over things like media? So just so you know, you all might think, yeah, we already know they're so fucking powerful, but you may not know how they're so powerful. So it's almost like, what's the word? I know there's definitely a saying behind it, an idiom of some sort, or metaphor, but it's almost like when, how cancer is bad, right? But I don't think everyone actually knows how cancer works, right? So cancer is actually cells in our body that multiply and turn into what we call tumors, right? And then they metastasize, I believe is the word. Basically, they become toxic eventually, and then they start killing you when the tumors start branching off, like pieces like spill off literally and then fly around the system. And then those tumor cells, when they're metastatic, is that the word? Correct me if I'm wrong, they begin to expand, right? So a lot of us don't actually know how cancer works, but a lot of us know that cancer is really bad, and when you get it, it kills you, right? The point that I'm trying to make is knowing when something is bad is definitely a big and the most important step of all. But then the next most important step is actually understanding how these things are hurting us. And what I would like you all to know is that even though I consider myself, I'm a moderate conservative. I know, it's shocking. I'm heavily left-leaning in my logic, right? But I'm not actually left-leaning, because the ultimate truth is that I see a lot of issues in left leadership. I do think that under a complete socialist structure, we ultimately hurt society more than we benefit it because it's not about the short term. So socialism is very good short term, but in the long term, there's a lot of side effects. Okay. And I've started to learn a lot of these things in my adult life after I was like so fucking committed to, my left-leaning ideologies for many years. And those ideologies are what makes me a human being and what makes me a compassionate, empathetic human being, what ultimately probably prevented me from becoming a very twisted person. And I will always treasure and worship my progressive ideologies. However, I'm not left-leaning because I do have a very moderate understanding of politics and ideology. Philosophy as well plays a big part in our ideologies, because what we don't understand is ultimately every single idea that comes from a human being comes from some form of philosophical thinking. Okay, like it's like, I really want to see the world be a better place, and how could we make it a better place? And then that's when the conjecture branches off, and you go into, we need financial stability, we need, we need spiritual stability so that people feel more at peace, blah, blah, blah. Like I can go on forever. My point that I'm trying to make is that I, as a moderate conservative, can tell you that it doesn't matter if you lean left. It doesn't matter if you lean right. By the way, my camera's obviously opposite siding everything. So if I look like I'm pointing left when I'm pointing right, that's the reason. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that wealthy people are seriously a detriment to our well-being and our stability. They are the reason that we are struggling so much economically at the moment worldwide. Not talking one nation, not talking the US or just Australia or just third world nation somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Asia. I'm not just talking about the fucking dredges of Russia or Chechnya and their fucking extremist anti-LGBT fucking Holocaust that they're causing over there. Like everywhere, we are struggling economically, socially, spiritually, ideologically. We are struggling with the concept of family values, the concept of education. With every which way that we as a society are currently struggling is stemming from a select group of people. Because at the end of the day, now again, winding this all in, tying it all in, you need to understand how the richest among us can actually control how you think. And if you listen to anything in this video, and I highly doubt anyone's going to listen to this, but I'm doing it anyhow, this is the most important part of the entire fucking stream. They have control over what the media says. We think that our journalism outlets are our access to the most honest and sincerest form of news telling. But here's the truth. Those journalism outlets, whether it's left, whether it's right, whether they call themselves moderate, are all politically inclined based on whoever their fucking owners are, whoever their CEOs bosses are. Not the CEO. The CEO is typically just someone that they hire to manage the company. We're talking about the fucking shareholders, the real, what are they called? Stakeholders, right? The real stakeholders in a business, okay? It's not just, I don't know why we ever call like customer stakeholders in a business, because ultimately, majority of the time, customers are not stakeholders. The biggest stakeholders are always going to be the ones who have invested the most money into a corporation. But not only do they take the biggest risk of all, typically, okay, I understand the concept. I understand why customers can be stakeholders as well. I was just cracking a fucking side joke for 2 seconds, or being snippy for 2 seconds. They ultimately have the biggest power over how that industry functions as well. When a big percentage shareholder decides that they want their news to tell you that fucking blue is black, that news corporation isn't going to sit there and argue with them about how blue isn't actually black. They're going to protect their work, protect their fucking financial their investors, and want to prevent them from fucking pulling all of their money out. And they're going to tell you that blue is black, and they're going to do it on such a mass level that you're going to see it not on one news outlet, but dozens and hundreds. And that's where they get you, my friends, because instead of just using Fox News, they'll also use Sky News. They'll also use the Tab I'm seeing over Facebook. They're going to use AI bots with fake fucking news corporations and fake identities to then also push the idea that blue is black when blue is actually just fucking blue. Okay? And please don't get fed up on the whole blue is black thing. It's just a fucking metaphor. Okay? It's figurative language. Just moving on. Okay? Yeah, and ultimately the point that I'm raising is this is the biggest area that they influence society on. So none of you, no matter how progressive, regressive, conservative, liberal, national, patriotic you are, every single one of your news sources is influenced by a millionaire or billionaire. Every single one of them. There's no such thing as independent. There is no such thing as an independent news outlet. Even the ones who are independent are probably getting sponsored by a millionaire or a billionaire corporation. Okay, so everything you read online, everything you see online, everything you see in real life, on billboards, on adverts, even the fucking models that they pick to advertise a fucking watch or a diamond ring to you, it's all carefully structured to manipulate your brain because it is such an intricate form of coercion and control that these very powerful people have over our minds. And I promise you, if you actually do the research of how advertising works, how the psychology behind it, you will come to realize how then big corporations can manipulate you into thinking that you want a diamond ring. Whereas it's funny because I've never wanted jewelry ever in my whole life. And no matter how much they try and advertise it to me, do you know what always supersedes the desire to want to have, the bling and all that stuff? It's the fact that whenever I wear jewelry, I get allergic reactions to it, right? So my benefit in this one little category of getting obsessed with the fucking, gem industry, the minerals, the fucking whatever minerals they're using and gems and rocks and stones, whatever they are, diamonds and gold, blah, 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 is that I have a physical condition which supersedes any mental manipulation that anyone's going to throw at me through, whether it's through movies. When you're in a movie, someone gets proposed to and you see the ring and how happy it makes them and how fucking beautiful the music is and the ambience of the fucking environment is and the colors that they use. The millionaire, billionaire corporations, when I say they, I'm specifically referring to the millionaire, billionaire corporations, their owners, okay, have a whole entire fucking group. We're talking thousands of staff, hundreds of thousands of staff, maybe millions, who are working with AI systems, and before AI systems, with psychologists, with psychiatrists, with people who have had very huge backgrounds in media and advertising to manipulate you into believing something is the case when it isn't. Just like this huge obsession with trans people in the world, just like this huge obsession with, oh my gosh, I'm having a mental fucking blank because trans people is literally the only thing I can see all over the news, and I think it's because of my algorithm fucking kicking in because I am trans, so it makes sense. But it's not just that. It's also about immigration. It's also about economic stability, and everyone always deflecting. Like every government you see at the moment deflects their fucking responsibilities onto either a vulnerable community, either someone who has literally no power over how our inflation structure works. For example, sometimes instead of putting the focus on a government, they'll put the focus on the Reserve Bank of a country. And it's just like everything is influenced by the same people. They're all influenced by the same fucking multi-millionaire, billionaire / almost trillionaire in the world to provide the same results, the same level of deflective arguments to make you think that there's not much more we can do. But I promise you, there is a lot that a country can do to preserve stability amongst its citizens. There is a lot they can do. And I'm specifically referencing economically right now because, fuck, I think we're all doing it so hard that we don't even have time to sit back and worry about the politics of the world anymore, because we don't even have time to sit back and fucking wash our clothes. We don't even have time to sit back and fucking do our dishes. Like, shit, we literally are automating everything now because of how little energy and time we have to do anything. And I used to think it was only me who struggled to fucking do my chores and run my errands and, you know, book my doctor's appointments, only up until I started realizing, no, it's not just me. It's so many of us struggling. And this is what I will always mean when I say it's anesthesia. It's societal, digital, carefully structured anesthesia to make you so numb to your own happiness, to your own responsibility to look after yourself, that you just completely forget that you should always be caring for yourself first, and that you should be able to exist in a world, pay all of your bills. Even if you've made bad decisions, you should still be able to pay off your debts as well as your normal bills, and still be able to allocate some time to your self-care, to your well-being, whether it's a doctor's appointment, whether it's being able to go on a holiday, whether it's being able to spend time with your family, your loved ones, playing your favorite games, whatever, being able to do the things that make you happy, okay, and that are actually necessary for you to have good hygiene, good mental health, good physical health, good, a good sense of belonging in the world, in the fucking universe. Media is just one example, but I wanted to focus on that one example so I can go into so much detail. But everything you can think of, the price of your groceries do not need to be that high. It is a decision. If they needed to be that high, then the owner of Woolworths and Coles and Walmart and Target and all this fucking shit out there, all these big companies, would not be making profits in the fucking billions, man. They wouldn't be making profits in the fucking billions if they were making just cents off of every single sale. And I'm talking mere cents. Like, we're talking, they're making a 10-cent profit, a 20-cent profit. Even if they were just making $1 profit off of an item, that would technically still make them so fucking rich, so fucking ridiculously rich, and still probably be earning their money in the multi-millions, almost fucking multi-billions, right? But no, they're inflating their prices. They're finding ways to make everything super cheap, usually by overseas manufacturing and importation, which is a lot cheaper than paying the cost of hiring staff in I don't want to say progressive per se, but more, I don't know, financially responsible nations that have to pay their citizens better wages. They found a way to fucking cheat that system. And ultimately, that hurts you and me. When your fucking a US company or my Australian company decides to go overseas and start manufacturing their goods there, you don't stop and think to yourself, oh, this company is profiting off of us still. They're profiting majority of their money off of us, right? Because people in third world countries can't afford to pay $100 for a fucking blouse, can't afford to pay $200 for a fucking an advanced fucking headset for their gaming, or pay $1,000 for, I don't know, some fucking designer glasses. They can't afford to do that. So who pays for it? We do. And these companies don't even fucking benefit the nations that they fucking thrive off of. Instead, they benefit off of other countries. And they don't even pay their citizens proper wages, which, again, we all know this stuff. And then on top of that, even though the cost of the goods they're making significantly drop because they're using these unethical forms of labor and manufacturing and tax evasive methods, right? Legally, illegally, irrelevant at this point. They're using these methods. They benefit off of it. They reduce their costs, but because they have a fucking Gucci label and a fucking Adidas label, a Nike label, whatever, they will charge you whatever the fuck they want. And I'm not sorry for naming their names because they absolutely know who they are. And we know for a fact that they do what they do. What I'm saying that they're doing, we know for a fact that these companies inflate the shit out of their prices of their goods and their services to make you think that you're actually paying value, you're getting value for the money you're spending. And you're not, because the cost of making those fucking Nike sneakers, those fucking, that Prada bag that you buy, it's like $10 at best, including the wages that they pay the staff member or members, whatever. And they will charge you $400, they will charge you $600, they'll charge you $1,000, $10,000, and we do it anyhow. That's how multimillionaires and billionaires make you poorer while they get richer, because most of us can't afford to spend 10 grand on a fucking clothing item or accessory and not have to suffer a consequence as a result. But because we want to feel like we belong, even if it's just a smidge, to upper class society, we will make those sacrifices. We will put ourselves in debt or sacrifice basic pleasures in life, basic necessities, fuck the pleasures, basic necessities, to be able to save up for a $5,000 accessory, for a fucking $2,500 phone, which is probably only like $50 to make. So if you want to know where the biggest problem is and why we, people like myself, progressives, say that the issue is in the actual fucking millionaires/billionaires, and we're not specifically referencing just like liberal conservatives here. We're talking just anyone who is genuinely earning a salary that would be enough to feed a whole fucking suburb or whole fucking nation of people, okay? For eternity, basically, at this point. They are ultimately taking advantage of you. They are breaking you. They are making you think that you desire things that you don't really desire. Trust me. I'm not saying this trying to fucking dictate what people want and don't want. I'm telling you, if you weren't influenced by media, and media is everything. Oh my gosh, it's everything. It is literally, if you detoxed yourself from all forms of technology, including advertisements that are out in the real world too, okay? Because that is also technically a form of technology. You would eventually find out a lot of things about yourself that you didn't know, and you would lose a lot of interest in things that you thought you were obsessed about, that you are currently obsessed about. You would discover a whole new version of yourself, and this is fact. Trust me, this is fact. It's like not even an opinion. It's literally a radical form of therapy that would change your life if you just detox yourself from all technology and advertisement content, basically lived out in the fucking woods somewhere for a month, for a week even. You would come to understand a whole different version of yourself, because we are that influenced by digital content, by the music that we listen to. Did you know that if you just listen to music and you don't even pay attention to the lyrics, it's been proven over many years, or at least statistically or research-based shown, right? Even if it's not like fully, unquestionably proven, it is almost pretty much that listening to something, even if you're not paying attention to it, still has the potential to heavily influence how your brain thinks and functions. It has the ability to, hypnosis or listening to hypnotic videos. I mean, we all laugh at it and think, oh, it's nonsense. But here's the thing. It's been happening for centuries now. And not just in the form, obviously, we haven't had digital content like, MP3 and all that stuff for centuries. But what I'm trying to say is we have had ways of influencing people for centuries, whether it's through sermons at a church or a mosque or a synagogue or a fucking Hindu temple, whatever. We've had ways of influencing people's thinking processes through, through gossip. Gossip is a huge thing. Back when there was no AI bots to spread all this false information, there were people getting paid to spread gossip. There were people getting paid to talk about how amazing particular people were, how awful certain people were. Now we know them as smear campaigns, right? Blake Lively is a big part of this. So, yeah. Look, all I'm trying to point out to you is it's a really good question that Bailey has raised. What are we going to do? And I'm telling you now, the solution is pretty black and white in that we need to take a bit of a civilian approach to dealing with people who are already controlling the systems that we'd normally rely on, which is our governments, okay? The governments are not our governments. We don't even technically pick who we want to elect. This is actually really fucking funny, right? Even in Australia, you only get a select group of people to vote for when you are going to an election. Doesn't matter if it's council-wide, city-wide, whatever, statewide. nationwide, federal, you only get a certain number of candidates to vote from. You don't there's a whole list of parties out there, but you're not actually being introduced to every single political candidate there is. And then even if there are really good ones, they don't always have a party. They don't always have a group that they're with. They might be independent. They might be overshadowed by the fact that these bigger groups have so much advertising fucking revenue coming in from their from their benefactors. They're not benefactors, they're donors. That's it. That you don't even realize the people that you're voting for actually they have been very carefully and financially coaxed into being in the positions that they are. You see Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, which I actually kind of like Kamala Harris. So, somehow I just think, sometimes these more effective leaders do slip through the cracks, and it's just because maybe they weren't so visible during their time in politics, and then suddenly they get put into a position like vice president, and then it's just like, bam, fuck, this would actually be a fantastic candidate to help manage growing tensions in our country. And then bam, you get smear campaigns, and then you get fucking Donald Trump being what's the word again? Getting donations of like, what was it, $1 million a day or something like that Elon Musk only was giving him. And and you just go into, you go into this fucking rabbit hole of delusion and disillusionment, and you don't know who's what and when's right and what to do and when to fucking act and whether you can even act and make a difference. But guess what? You can, folks. You can make decisions that actually help help your country, help make the world a better place. There are leaders within big groups who would be very good candidates for leadership. So just because someone's a Democrat, or in Australia, Labor Party, or Liberal or whatnot, for example, one big example that I've always been so passionate about, Malcolm Turnbull was an Australian Prime Minister. For many, many fucking years, they were talking about legalizing same-sex marriage, right? It was just like, in Australia, it's just like, we're not like super fucking conservative here. We're not, seriously. Like, our culture is so comfortable. It's almost like, yeah, we have conservative values because the government forces them into our education systems and all that stuff, through hospitals and all that stuff. Like, you will see like chaplain watch and all that shit for our police formats, which I think is ridiculous, because like, fuck, what are we gonna do next? Fucking imam watch, fucking synagogue hotel or something like that in the fucking hospital system. Don't pay a little bit extra and come into our fucking Jewish sanctuary where we'll give you religious fucking spiritual healing along with your medical fucking interventions, all that shit. I'm being facetious here. Just FYI, I'm being very facetious. Anyhow, the point that I'm trying to make is that there can be candidates within very corrupt organizations who are actually really good people who are trying to do the right thing. And the way that they're trying to push themselves into relevance is by joining these bigger groups. And that doesn't mean they agree with everything they say. Even in Australia, with our Labor Party, who's meant to be our left-leaning party, we had... was it Fatma Paiman, I think is her name, a minister, stand up for Palestine, and they kicked her out of the Labor Party because she decided she decided to be a human being, an individual. Like, when the fuck did you being a part of a political group mean that you're not allowed to have your own opinions? It is the most far-fetched, ridiculous, chaos-inducing, like mind-boggling thing to consider that you can be a part of a group and not have independence and not have individuality in order to survive in it. And it's just, even in a left-leaning party, like where everyone thinks you're left-leaning, fucking left-leaning people are, are rancid with their opinions and unstable and just blah 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 blah. We can say anything we want, right? But at the end of the day, it's not the case. So even the progressive parties are still very much part of the hive mind logic, the hive mind ideology, where you have to be a particular way, practice your ideology a particular way, display it in a particular way, project it in a particular way. You're not allowed to be an individual. So know that even in these very problematic, very dangerous groups that have formed over many, many many years. For some places, over centuries. For some, newer countries like Australia, over the last, 100 years or so is, I think, when we really started developing the whole labor liberal monopoly. And look, my point that I'm trying to make is that pay attention to your politicians, not the groups that they're in. Pay attention to how they have gotten into their positions, and never, listen to me, never, ever, ever elect a multi-millionaire / billionaire / trillionaire into your leadership circles, ever. If you research someone and you find out that they are very wealthy, chances are their closest friends are the very corporations that thrive off of, say, resource extraction. So whether it's minerals, whether it's in Australia, mining is a big thing. A lot of our politicians, left or right or moderate, are influenced by the mining industry, and a lot of what they advocate for, whether it's energy policies, whether it's welfare policies, whether it's oh my gosh, I'm trying to think, taxes, the way we manage our taxes is influenced by these very wealthy people, because at the end of the day, they can get the citizens to pay more taxes. They don't have to, make up for the lost revenue, as in the governments don't have to focus so much on them. As long as we're getting enough money from the actual working class to survive, to thrive, then that's good enough. But hey, you could be taxing these fucking mega billionaire industries. Doesn't matter how much money they're bringing into the country. Fuck, we have enough taxpayer money in every nation out there in the world, predominantly every nation, like majority, to be able to start our own mining industries that are government run, that are able to sustain the same level of production over time, even if it's not right away, even if it means you struggle for a little while. There's nothing more powerful than people owning the fucking infrastructure and service industry that exists within any nation, and instead of fucking outsourcing them to other countries and outsourcing them to these massive billionaire companies that take so much of those minerals and resources and make such a huge profit off of them, and then pay very little. But the exemption that they get is because they put so much revenue into the country via employment, right? Via purchases, which again, purchases are probably from China and all that shit too, which, that's fine. It's okay. Wherever you want to purchase whatever from is fine. The point is that if a business or a human, a person, a politician, is not inherently focused on reducing and alleviating the stresses that are tormenting and ultimately harming your stability in life, your peace, your opportunity to have a good life, they are not the right fit to be taking advice from, to be following in the footsteps of, to be electing into leadership, to be listening to their media corporations that are owned by them and their friends. You need to really start focusing on who you're voting for. You need to start paying attention to their wealth. No politician should be wealthy. None, absolutely none. Even Donald Trump, when he gets elected, both times he what's the word? He puts everything into a trust, gives it to one of his kids, and then they return it back to him when they're done. That is corruption. That defeats the purpose of sacrificing wealth so that you can take on a patriotic duty like leadership. And the fact that we know this and do nothing about it, that has nothing to do with the fact that we can't, babes. That has nothing to do with the fact that we can't actually do anything about it. We can, but the issue is that unfortunately, the government that we have instilled in every country, in every state in our world, is ultimately led by the very people who don't want to take that responsibility, who don't want to face consequences for their problematic intentions, their fucking detrimental desires to withhold tax dollars, to withhold, moral and ethically feasible policies and procedures in their workspaces to make sure their staff are sufficiently supported. No one told you that you have to work 40 hours a week. There's no law. There's no biological, physical, like scientific law that says you have to work 40 hours a week to be able to pay your bills. That is something that the very people I've been mentioning this entire video have incorporated, have embedded into your mind through again media. Media is everything. Media is the ultimate power. It is a godlike weapon, a literally godlike weapon amongst our society, and has been since it's become digitally available to everyone. So all I'm saying is take a step back. You want to know what to do, Bailey? You want to know what to do, friends of Bailey, friends of, good changes in the world, positive changes in the world that actually help us? You need to start by researching who you're voting for. You need to start by willing to take on some consequences, including copping a fine, if you don't want to vote in an election because the options you have available are all awful. To be able to say, no, I want to pick an option that says all of these candidates are pieces of shit. I want a better one. I want this election to be put on halt, and I want better candidates to be put in there so we can vote. A country should be able to say that all of our options are shit. We want better ones before we vote. You should be able to say that. It's your human right. No one, nothing has said you need to work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week to survive. No one has said that you need to be able to afford your own medical costs. No one said that you need to be able to be a gym fit fucking 6-pack, big pecs or big titty, tight waist, snatched waist individual to be a model. No one actually said this from a scientific perspective, from a logical perspective, from pragmatism to logistics. I'm talking about the things that actually matter, facts, real life facts. Nothing in history, in the universe, other than people, have actually said that you need to fulfill certain criteria to be able to do different things. Do you need to study to become a doctor? Absolutely. Do you need to have a qualification to be a doctor? But no, don't confuse what I'm trying to say. By all means, you need to be qualified. You don't need to have a certificate to know how to do a surgery, because you could have been trained depending on where you live from. You could live in a war-torn country. You could live in a third world country, somewhere where university is too expensive, and you might have a doctor in the family, a surgeon in the family. You could have been taught how to be a qualified surgeon from more methods than just one. Expand your mind, folks, is all I'm saying. I know I'm throwing 100 different examples. That's an ADHD brain for you. But ultimately, they all mean the same thing, right? I mean, it's good. I'm throwing darts out here, but they're very carefully structured darts where if you don't understand one of them, one of the ideas or one of the points that I've raised, you might understand another, okay? So ultimately, the goal is just throwing a few different ways of looking at this to understand. So, and what are the consequences if we don't do the things that I've just mentioned, where we start making a stand, we start taking a stand, we start making more radical decisions, vigilante decisions, civilian endorsed and run decisions to protect our world? We eventually all start becoming more and more burdened by debts. Inflation will continue to rise in every country, not just one or two. In every country, you will keep having extremist politicians going into power. You will have more than one more Holocaust. We'll have more. We'll have more than a World War III. We'll have more than 1 billion lives lost. We will die. We will gradually die, and they will replace us with whatever means necessary to still provide them the same level of production, whether it's via their companies, production for their business, services, etc. I mean, shopping centers are a huge example already. And those self-service checkouts, they're fucking not paying you anything, not giving you a discount. They're not doing anything for you, literally nothing. But they're making you do the job of putting your own shit into a grocery bag. They've even convinced you that you have to pay for the fucking grocery bag too now. And yeah, we all raised a kerfuffle about it when we first heard about it. And you know what they did to counteract that? They said it's because we're trying to be environmentally friendly. Well, you can fucking be environmentally friendly. You make billions of dollars a fucking year for your shareholders. Billions, like multi-billions. You could afford to give some fucking free paper bags to your customers. So it's just more than just one area that we are being affected by, folks. It is huge. It is crushingly huge. It is so expansive and detrimental in how our current society is functioning, that it is only going to get worse. There is no question about it. Like, there is no need to conjecture whether what I'm saying is has a possibility of occurring, a probability chance. No, it's already happening. Inflation is already rising everywhere. The cost of homes, of groceries, of fuel, of clothing, of basic joys is going up and up. Our wages are increasing ever so slightly and not able to match those inflation rates. You will have the reserve banks and other economists tell you that, oh yeah, it's actually pretty stable. No, it's not stable. It's not stable, because if it were stable, you would not be working 40 hours a week to survive. Yeah? Like, common sense. If it was stable, if it was actually increasing at a rate where you can live comfortably, where your nation is actually looking after you, your politicians are looking after you, your hours would be reducing down to 25 a week. Okay, that's an exaggerated amount to start off with, sure. It would be going down to 35 to start off with. Then eventually 33, 31. We would eventually be doing 30-hour weeks. And sure, the AI and the bots and all these technological advancements would be helping to make all of that happen without destroying your sense of stability, whether it's economically, socially, spiritually, whatever, all of the above, physically, all of the things that make us feel good as individual human beings. So yeah, you need to start observing the fact that there's actually no such thing as the left or the right or the moderates or anything like that. There is only human beings. Like, that's what we are. Our ideologies have no scientific or biological hold over us. We decide what ideologies we want to follow. And even when we follow an ideology, no one can ever follow a single ideology 100% to perfection. And we will always have different varying ideals and belief systems. The biggest thing that we need to come together on is the fact that we are in a very detrimental period for society, and it is being caused by people who make us think that they're on our political leaning, but they're not. Like, none of them are. Not really. It's how they get you. It's one of the strategies that they use to make you think that you're on the right track. Like, for example, me, I will always follow like more progressive celebrities and drool over more progressive male, with fit guys, whether they're celebrities or they're fitness experts or whatnot. Like, I always instinctively want to go for the progressives, and I think suddenly that makes it better. But here's the honest truth: it doesn't actually change anything about the fact that I am craving another human being to the point of potentially obsession, right? For example, I'm not saying this is inherently what I'm going through like currently, but I have in my life, especially when I was younger and more vulnerable and more susceptible to the concept of, the Taylor Lautners and Robert Pattinsons of the world and all that jazz. When we're so easily pulled into the influence-centric media that exists in the world, that we often forget that we have so much in common. Like, we have so much in common. Oh my gosh. I work in the disability industry, and I can tell you now, my clients, most of them have been very conservative, very, very right-wing. And let me just say that we have so much in common. And I might be conservative in the sense where I like the concept of promoting, family values. the concept of traditional is subjective anyhow. Like, because to me, traditional family values was never just the straight couple or a cis hetero couple. I've always believed that, you know, a traditional values refers to the fact that you try and have a sense of family, a sense of belonging. You support your kids. You financially provide for your family, whether you're woman or man. Like, you know, traditional and all that stuff, they're all subjective matters. Like, to be a conservative for me just means focusing on the things that actually matter. Being human, being caring, being connected to your spiritual self, and spirituality to me is very secular for me. Like, I don't sit there and think there's an old man with a beard in the sky listening to all of my prayers. For me, it's about connecting with my universe, being able to have empathy. Empathy for me is being spiritual. So yeah, my point that I'm trying to make is that there's no such thing as, oh my gosh, you're part of one group or another. I fucking hate the right. Okay, specifically, if I'm being honest, you will see a lot of content if I ever were to become somehow popular out there in the world, which I highly doubt, and that's a good thing at this point in time, because I'm anxiety riddled and I'd hate the attention. Love it, but ultimately hate it. The point that I'm trying to make is, like, it doesn't matter like which political leaning you're in. We're all in the same team, because at the end of the day, all I want, like, tell me if this is not what you want, tell me. But all I want is to be able to pay my bills, to be able to actually go enjoy life. Like, if I want to go spend $1,000 on some stupid venture, I don't want that to be a punishment for me. I don't want that to mean that I have to now suffer for the next several weeks paying it off over a buy now, pay later system or something. I want to be able to spend the $1,000, still be able to do the same level of work. And for that $1,000 to be valuable, the same level of value as it is now, even though I am working X amount of hours, you know, I don't want there to be a consequence involved. I want people to be able to have a healthy amount of work-life balance, to be able to have time for their families, have time for themselves, to get the medical treatments that they need. And my gosh, we're such a broken society. Like, we all need mental health care. Like, we all need mental health care, right? But sorry, my ear is getting so itchy right now, and my throat is getting like sore because I'm talking so much. So apologies for that. Yeah, look, I've gone on for over an hour. Look, the point that I'm ultimately trying to raise with you is that we are all on the same team. We all want stability. We all want to feel safe. We all want to be able to live our lives and believe what we want to believe without being persecuted. We want to be able to have you know, an education system that helps us achieve the goals that we want to achieve, and not what, you know, again, these very corrupt people want to lead us into. I shouldn't have to study, you know, criminal psychology if I wanted to, for example, and then be told that I have to follow all these policies and procedures that ultimately make my work redundant. And trust me, you'll be surprised that in fields like even just psychology, quick example, the amount of risks that they take when a psychologist decides to give you actual advice, meaningful advice, or criticism, the risk of you know, suicidality, and then that being used to sue you, say someone commits suicide because you told them that they need to get their fucking shit together, the risk of being sued because someone felt like they were discriminated against, all that jazz, right? I'm not talking about telling a trans person to detransition or telling a Christian person to become an atheist, stuff like that. That's just, we're not talking about forcing someone to change into something they're not. We're talking about just them giving valuable advice to say, hey, you want to be able to write a book? Well, first things first, maybe stop drinking so much fucking alcohol all the time. Maybe stop fucking binge eating and watching movies all day, and allocate some time to yourself so that you can actually focus on writing your book or going to the gym or whatnot. Like, it's your choice. Like, if you're choosing to stay because of your depression and feed your depression, at the end of the day, this, regardless of how meaningful and understanding your suffering is and all the medical history you have, that the medical occurrences you have presently that are affecting your ability to do something, at the end of the day, it is your choice. It is your choice, for better or for worse. We sometimes need hard realities, hard truths in life. And this is just one example of what I mean. there is so much impacting our ability to actually just do our jobs properly, support the community properly, be good people, be happy in our industries, actually serve real purpose. And we've been conditioned for many, many years now to think that all of these policies and laws and procedures and logics that are put into place are all because we're trying to maintain peace and security and stability within the industries we work in, the society we live in, etc. But there has to be a point where we have to stop and reflect and go, well, it's not working. And if it was working once upon a time, in this current society that we're in this current era that we're in, the digital revolution era, the technological revolution era, the AI fucking revolution era, the corruption fucking rich era that we are in, it's not working anymore. We need some hard talk. We need to talk tough topics. We need to have real meaningful changes. We need to have politicians that are genuinely educated and experienced in leadership, not in politics, but in leadership as a collective to be taking charge. And we need to get rid of these fucking problematic individuals like Donald Trump and Pauline Hanson from politics. We should not even be putting them in positions where they have a fucking seat within our parliaments, within our government sectors. They should not be involved when their sole purpose is to peddle all the wrong things that make humans very sad people, because they get paid for it. They don't even mean, like 90% of the things they say, they don't even mean. They get paid to think that way, to make you think that they think that way is what I meant to say. So you need to start by focusing on who your politicians are. You need to start by checking their histories and actually getting involved. I'm not saying that I do this all the time. I'm just telling you what needs to be done. This is the truth. You need to pay attention to which companies are actually producing shit in other countries. Did I say countries or companies? Which companies are producing what shit in what countries? You need to be willing to pay that extra $3 or $4, even if it means that you're going to fucking miss your favorite snack of the day, to be able to purchase things that are actually produced and manufactured in your country. That's a big start, because if you want economic stability, you need to start serving your fucking country. You need to start serving your fucking country. Like, don't sit there and talk about patriotism when you're not even buying all insert your nation made products to begin with, right? Or insert a nation that is heavily contributing to your nation's products at the very least, right? So that's one other thing. You need to start paying attention to how much is going into the welfare system. Because yes, even though, extreme radical conservatives focus so much on how much welfare is hurting society, the honest truth is you need to focus on where the welfare payments are going into. I'm talking about, your taxpayer dollars, the money that you worked and bled and shed tears and sweat and sleep. You lost so much sleep on to make and pay to the government. You have a right to hold the government accountable for where that money goes to. You have a right. That is your power. That is your decision. Like, that is your fucking sovereignty to decide where that money goes to, not what the government decides to do with it. Right? Donald Trump invested, how many $1 trillion into the military? Why the fuck is a peace-centered president, so to say, not focusing on not focusing on trying to make the lives of his citizens better, instead of... Okay, sorry, I just got to pop up. Look, I'm going to finish the stream. I can go on forever and ever. All I'm trying to say is, look, guys, you need to pay attention to who you're electing. You need to pay attention to where your money is going, where your tax dollars are going. You need to focus on the right places that your money should be going to. You need to pay attention. So if you have super or social security, whatever your version of a retirement fund is, you need to be focusing on where the companies that you're investing with, or where your money is going to, so that they can invest it for you, where they're investing it into. Because if they're investing it overseas and not in other national fucking industries, well, then they're ultimately helping other countries get richer, but they're not helping your country get richer, and therefore you're getting poorer, Because by the time you get access to that money, sure, yeah, you might get an extra 100 grand, depending on how much money you're earning in the long run. If they do invest in other countries, and 100 grand is me being generous. Okay, it's not always going to be that. Probably going to be 10 grand. Probably going to be 20, 50, maybe in some cases more than 100, but most of the time it's not going to be more. If you're not willing to make those sacrifices to start getting the changes that you need to look after yourself, your future, your children's future, well, nothing is going to change. And if you don't start raising a kerfuffle about which politicians are actually going into power, which ones are being brought in front of you so that you can pick one of the lot, of the many fucking lot that have also been, funded by very, very wealthy individuals. I promise you, majority of them have. I promise you, if they themselves are not the wealthy individual, they're being sponsored by someone who is extremely wealthy, and they've got legal ways to get away with the massive, horrible amounts of money that they're donating to these politicians. That's why we call them career politicians. They make money out of it. You need to pay attention to, how much you're paying for your streaming services. Why are you paying $20-something for Netflix? Why? Have you thought about why you're paying that much? Have you thought about how much money is Netflix making at the end of every financial year? Is it so much that they could probably reduce the cost of their services by a couple of dollars to help you? Yeah, you might only be saving $6, but $6 is $6 a year, man. You need to be asking questions like, when I go to the grocery store, why is it that a product that only a few years ago was a couple of bucks is now $12? Why is it that the half price amount, they love advertising 50% off, right? Why is the half price amount the normal amount that it was only 2 years ago? If you're not holding them accountable, if you're not sending in the feedback, if you're not talking online like I am right now, wasting your time, complaining to the media outlets where, at least if they're fucking run by corrupt people, they love good attention. And if enough people are raising issues, they report on those issues. Take advantage of the systems in place. Use the corruption to serve our purpose as civilians, as working class people, as struggling people. Find ways to make these tools that exist to serve them serve us. And there are ways. There are so many ways we can take advantage of everything. And then, talk about it. Come online. Make a fool of yourself. Make a fool of yourself like I am doing right now for a video that I don't even think like more than 10 people are ever going to see. But I'm doing it anyhow because I care. I know that those of you who watch, maybe out of 10 people that may view over the lifetime of the video, one of you will care as well. Maybe you'll go make your own video. If we get enough conversation going, if we have enough people coming together and putting their ideas forward, maybe one thing, only one idea in this whole 1-point-something hour video is going to be beneficial in helping the future that we're talking about come to fruition. That's amazing. Even if like one word that I've said contributes, that's phenomenal. That's something I could go to my grave and be happy about. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you.